this morning, Britain is ushering in its third prime minister in just 7 weeks. Earlier today, Rishi Sunak was invited to form a government following a meeting with King Charles at Buckingham Palace. He becomes the UK's first leader of colour and first Hindu prime minister. In his first address as PM, Sunak acknowledged the challenges ahead and the problems faced by his predecessor.
Some mistakes were made, not born of ill will or bad intentions. Quite the opposite, in fact. But mistakes, nonetheless. And I have been elected as leader of my party and your Prime Minister, in part, to fix them. And that work begins immediately. I will place economic stability and confidence at the heart of this government's agenda. This will mean difficult decisions to come.
NBC News contributor and Sky News anchor Wilfred Frost joins us now from London. Wilfred, thanks for being with us on this big news there for you. So Sunak's rise to prime minister, it's a pretty big milestone for British politics. Tell us what else we heard in that speech earlier. What were some of the biggest takeaways?
Yeah, massive milestone, as you mentioned, the first Hindu, the first British Asian Prime Minister, also the youngest Prime Minister for 200 years, aged just 42. Three things stood out for me from that speech, Savannah. The first is it was sober. I don't think he smiled once. He didn't pose for a photo with his wife and two daughters afterwards. And I think that reflects the tough economic environment, but also the fact, of course, he didn't win an election to get this role. He was sort of anointed, so there's nothing so much to celebrate. I think also the way he mentioned tough choices to come. You played that soundbite with the outlook for the economy front and centre. And thirdly, I think it was well constructed and well delivered. He seemed prime ministerial.
As we mentioned, and of course, as you're experiencing there, Sunak is the third prime minister in just 7 weeks. And as you also just mentioned, an unelected one at that. Do you believe he's capable of not only uniting his party, but the whole country, which didn't get a chance to vote for him?
I think both will be tough tasks. The most important in the short term, though, is uniting his party, because without that, he won't have the time in office to try and unite the country, as, of course, his predecessor, Liz Truss, found out. And two lessons to take from her of what not to do when trying to unite the party. The first is to appoint a broad cabinet that brings in all wings of the party. Liz Truss famously did not do that. And also to take your time, go step by step and make sure you bring the party with you. Don't try and fix everything at once. As for trying to unite the country, I mean, the polls say it all. The Conservatives massively behind. And even if he solves this political instability that's played into those polls, to try and solve the economic crisis will be very tricky indeed. And of course, if a recession is looming, very hard to change your position in those polls.
Yeah, absolutely. It's probably going to be the largest challenge he faces right away, and markets had reacted very poorly to his predecessor's economic policies. Particularly given Sunak's experience, is there much hope he can put things right and restore some stability when it comes to the economy?
Hope rather than confidence immediately, though it's important to note that confidence has in fact already returned to the markets, and that's fairly embarrassing for Liz Truss, of course. It was just news that she would be departing that helped bring a little bit of market stability back to the fold here. As for the underlying economy, there are no easy fixes. We're at the end of a long cycle which has been supported by excess government spending, which we know we can't return to, given the lessons from the Truss government. We've got 10% inflation and we're a net energy importer, unlike the United States. I think his task is to hold on to power for long enough to give it a chance that the economy can bottom and be slightly on the up again, albeit from a low base, to give him any chance of winning a general election in due course.
All right, Wilfred Frost, thank you so much for joining us on this news today.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.